Hello, welcome to Today in History. My name is Sotoni Afiasima. Let's get cracking. 1871. On this day, we had the Great Fire of Chicago. So, the day was the 8th of October, and the year was 1871. So, you can see from this painting here, the residents of Chicago fleeing the Great Fire of Chicago. How did this fire start? It began in the barn of Patrick and Catherine O'Leary, and by the time the blaze died out 2 days later, a large swath of the city had been devastated, and about 300 people lost their lives. So this is what happened on this day, sadly, about 2 centuries ago. Okay, let us now move on to the year 1871. Interestingly, guess what? It's another fire. This time it was in the city of Peshtigo in Wisconsin in the United States. So Peshtigo burned to the ground in hours. And this fire was even more devastating than the fire of Chicago, even though Chicago is a much larger city. The fire in Peshtigo, the city of Peshtigo, killed 1,152 people. So another fire, sadly, on this day, in the same year, 1871. Let's move on to the year 1957. So nearly a century later, on this day, guess what? Another fire. This is the nuclear facility called the Windscale nuclear facility. It's located in northwestern England. So you can see from this picture here, it was the worst nuclear accident in Great Britain's history. Let me read a bit about this. An accident at the Windscale nuclear facility in northwestern England caused a fire that burned for 16 hours and left 10 tons of radioactive fuel melted in the reactor core. So, no recorded loss of lives, thankfully, but this was yet another fire on this day. I'm not sure what it is with October 8th and fires, but you can see the trend here. So that's about that for 1957, the 8th of October. In 1967, so exactly 10 years later, this man here, pictured on this postage stamp, Clement Attlee, he was a British politician who, while serving as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1945 to 1951, presided over the establishment of a welfare state in his country. So this was the day in 1967 when he died. He also granted independence to India, so he was the one in charge of the affairs of the United Kingdom when India was granted independence. So he died at the age of 84 on this day in 1967. So this is Clement Attlee again, pictured on this postage stamp, who died on this day in 1967. Let's move on to the year 1970. And on this day, this man pictured here, Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn, was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. So that is Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn, who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. I want to read a bit more about this. Looks like an interesting fellow. So this interesting fellow was, you might have guessed, a Russian novelist. He was also a philosopher, he was a historian, short story writer, and interestingly, I did say it was interesting, didn't I? He was a political prisoner as well. Now, why was he imprisoned? I'm going to read a bit more about this guy. So listen to this. Solzhenitsyn was an outspoken critic of the Soviet Union and communism and helped to raise global awareness of the Soviet Gulag. The Soviet Gulag forced labor camp system. After serving in the Soviet army during World War II, he was sentenced to spend 8 years in a labor camp and then internal exile for criticizing Joseph Stalin in a private letter. He was allowed to publish only one work in the Soviet Union, a novel, One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, that was published in 1962. Although the reforms brought by Nikita Khrushchev freed him from exile in 1956, the publication of Cancer Ward, which was published in 1968, and then August 1914. Interestingly, that's the year my grandma was born. So he publishes August 1914 in 1971, and the Gulag Archipelago in 1973, the year of my birth. Beyond the Soviet Union angered authorities, and Solzhenitsyn lost his Soviet citizenship in 1974. Interesting. He was flown to West Germany, and in 1976 he moved with his family to the United States, where he continued to write. Shortly before the dissolution of the Soviet Union, his citizenship was restored in 1990, and 4 years later he returned to Russia, where he remained until his death in 2008. He was awarded the 1970 Nobel Prize in Literature for the ethical force with which he pursued the indispensable traditions of Russian literature. His The Gulag Archipelago was a highly influential work that amounted to a head-on challenge to the Soviet state and sold tens of millions of copies. So that's Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn, as you can see in this picture in the front of Time magazine. Let's move on to the next important event on this day, and that was in the year 2004. Martha Stewart, pictured right here, called the American domestic lifestyle innovator. She reported to a federal prison in West Virginia to begin her 5-month sentence for insider trading. So this was the day that happened in the year 2004. Last but not least, another disaster, believe it or not, this time in the Pakistan administered portion of the Kashmir region and the northwest frontier province of Pakistan. So the event, as you might have guessed from this picture, was an earthquake, and it killed at least 79,000 people. Very sad, as so many people lost their lives in an earthquake. So this is a picture that shows the aftermath of the earthquake that killed 79,000 people, at least 79,000 people. So on that sad note, because we remember those obviously who are remembering their loved ones today, those who lost their loved ones 15 years ago on this day, our hearts go out to you. Of course, we hope that the buildings that have been erected there are now earthquake proof, so that in case this happens again, the lives that were lost in this earthquake would not be lost. The casualties and fatalities would be brought to the absolute minimum. So guys, that's today in history for the 8th of October. I hope you learned something. That's my intention here. Lessons for the future, lessons for tomorrow, gleaned from events and lessons from history. I hope that makes sense. All right, guys. Thanks for dropping by. I'll see you tomorrow again for today in history. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. That would help with the algorithm and help push my video to more viewers and listeners. Also, consider subscribing. That would also help me as well. You can do that by clicking the notification bell and you will receive updates of my video uploads. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and I shall see you again, hopefully, tomorrow on Today in History. Thank you. Bye-bye.